Hello and welcome to The Nation. I'm Gerard Ratnam. On this edition, we'll be talking about accelerating sustainability responsiveness in corporate Malaysia. Question is though, what does all this mean? Try picturing it like this. Very simply, a sustainability makeover for Malaysian companies. The plan is for them to rock a greener vibe, make the planet happy, and become the cool kids of business success. Joining me in the studio is TENGKU ZARINA, the CEO of the Security Industry Development Corporation, the capacity building arm of the Securities Commission of Malaysia. And via Skype from the Federal Capital, we have MUAZ HASNOL. He is a managing consultant, and our topic of discussion once again is accelerating sustainability responsiveness in corporate Malaysia. Did I say corporate? I'm sorry about that. Well, just allow me by setting the stage with this. Formidable challenges. What formidable challenges loom before us? And basically what I'm asking is, what do we see coming our way, and why must the viewer care about what we're talking about today? Okay. TENGKU ZARINA, maybe you can start off with this, and then we'll bring MUAZ in. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gerard. And thank you, Ratnam, for having me here in the Nation. For me, Gerard, sustainability is a journey for everyone, right? And there is no hard and fast rule of when we start the journey, but we must start the journey. And before we go to corporate Malaysia, as you mentioned just now in your opening, it is good if we can just refresh the term sustainability itself, right? So the term sustainability was defined by United Nations in 1987, which is defined as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs, right? And then if you look back at the Rukun Negara, national principles, number 5, kesopanan and kesusilaan, courtesy and morality. Mm-hmm. Now, the Rukun Negara was actually created in 1970, as far back as that year, right? And one of the objectives that it stated was actually to create a just society where prosperity of the country can be enjoyed together in a fair and equitable manner. Mm-hmm. Okay, mm-hmm. So that is sustainability. And then, if in Malaysia we have got multi religions, right? And the tenets of every religion is about doing good to mankind, doing good to environment, right? So sustainability is already there in the tenets of every religion that we have. Right, so it is already, sustainability is already embedded in our way of life already, right? And now going to the corporate Malaysia, in the business context, how do we define? Broadly, we can define sustainability as doing business without negatively affecting the environment and society as a whole, right? And in the as you would have it, sustainability performance of the corporates are normally assessed through a specific framework, mm-hmm. Where ESG factors, namely the environmental, social, and governance, are governed.
Right.
So where we are in terms of sustainability now, 4 or 5 years ago, Gerard, if we talk about any sustainability initiatives, like any initiative to help the poor, mm-hmm. right? Or initiatives, green initiatives for that matter. Most of the time, this could be sent to the CSR activities, charity activities, right. Or even some staff engagement activities, right? Now, zooming in now, this is not happening like that anymore. Sustainability mm-hmm. is already embedded in the whole organization, right? Mostly in corporate Malaysia, mostly.
Right.
So I'm glad to see that we are already having this kind of stage. There's a lot going on now.
Right. So
there's a lot.
Well, what you're saying in short is there is traction, and it's...
there is a lot. Yeah.
There is momentum, there is
momentum.
Traction.
And for the last 4 or 5 years, you can see that a lot, especially, right. Well, I guess the pandemic really accelerated this.
Right. Let's bring MUAZ in. MUAZ, I'd like to get your thoughts on this, just to set the stage. Formidable challenges that loom before us, and why must the viewer care about what we're talking about today?
Yep, thank you for having me. I think what TENGKU ZARINA has mentioned is true, but I think I really want to touch upon why must the viewer care about what we're talking about today, right? In simple terms, the biggest and most important impact of climate change will be to people's lives and livelihoods. There's already evidence that 85% of the global population is already experiencing weather events made worse by climate change, and of course we are no stranger to this. Only recently, we've experienced a very strong heat waves that would become more frequent and more severe if this continues on. In 2021, we've had massive flash floods, which claimed more than 70 lives. So all these impacts of climate change will, one way or another, impact our daily lives. Now, if we go back to corporate Malaysia, I think there's about 350 billion to 400 billion in investments needed for Malaysia to reach net zero. And the question here, or the challenge here, is that how can the private sector play a role, in fact, a leading role, to unlock this amount, to unlock this investment, and ensure that we transition to net zero in a just manner?
Mm-hmm. Now, I'd like to move on to this. Why must we, I guess, the signs are on the wall, but why must we accelerate climate reforms alongside social reforms? And what does this mean in terms of how we go about our daily lives?
Because they are interconnected, Gerard. Yeah. If you heard MUAZ just now in terms of the size of the calamities that we have in climate change and how it's going, how fast it is going. The climate change, with what you see right now, the impact, long droughts, right? Uneven weather or extreme weathers, right? Heat waves, and so forth. These are actually deteriorating the society, right? If we have already social issues, and that will be worsening it. Simultaneously, social issues that we have right now, poverty, lack of access to education, gender inequality, and so forth, will hinder the society to actually, the ability to actually access and respond to climate change.
Right.
So, you have to do any reforms that you want to do, you have to do it together.
Well, we'll move on to the next bit, which is we now have a ministry that oversees climate change. And how would you rank Malaysia's government's efforts and responsiveness with regard to climate reforms? MUAZ? Maybe we're trying to get him back on the line, but Tengku, maybe I'll go to you for this first, and maybe you can walk us through this one. We now have a ministry that oversees climate change. How would you rank the Malaysian government's efforts and responsiveness with regards to climate reforms? A lot of people have a lot to say about where the government is and what they're doing. What are your thoughts on this?
MUAZ may have more details than me on this, but generally, being in the corporate Malaysia scene, right, I think we have seen a lot. We have seen regulators, we have seen policymakers, we have seen stakeholders working together, right, in guiding the corporate Malaysia to be where they are. So, I think we can't say we are the best in this in terms of where we are in terms of our progress, but we can safely say that we are ahead of some of the countries in the region.
We're ahead of some of the countries, and that's good news. MUAZ, I'm going to come to you with this again. The ministry that oversees climate change, there's a lot to be done, people say, but what do you think our efforts and responsiveness with regards to climate reforms at this point?
Look, I think it's only been about 6 months, so it is a bit too soon to tell. But the steps have been very encouraging. It's been very promising. So far, we know that the ministry is drafting Malaysia's first ever climate change act. They're also working hand in hand with the Ministry of Economy, which is a great thing because as we all know, the climate change is encompassing a lot of other ministries as well. We also know that they've increased their renewable energy target to 70% by 2050. And more recently, they've also announced the uplifting of the ban on renewable energy exports, which will, of course, help local players. So the fact that they've hit the ground running is extremely encouraging. If we are to be, a bit more critical, one thing that we haven't heard much on is whether we'll be having a national adaptation plan. For all we know, it could be in the works. But considering the time so far, it's been very promising, and I look forward to further developments.
Now, we often hear that corporate Malaysia is quite advanced when it comes to policy and regulatory actions in, of course, steering sustainability or the agenda of sustainability. Maybe give us an example or two of what's happening on the ground.
As I alluded just now, Gerard, that corporate Malaysia as a whole, we have the benefit of the necessary guidance by the regulators ahead. very well advanced. I think this is where I can quote what Securities Commission has done for the capital market industry. They have started this process, this journey in 2014, yeah, where they have the bond sukuk framework, and this is the intrusive frameworks for the SRI sukuk, yeah, enabling the companies to raise financing for green, social and sustainability projects. And so far, I think we have a total of 18.9 billion ringgit already issued under this framework, yeah. And then they have now principle-based SRI taxonomy to provide a bit more transparency on the SRI guidelines that they have before. We have now, they have already reviewed the guidelines on sustainable and responsible investment SRI funds last year, and so far we have about, as at December last year, a total of 58 SRI funds already offered in Malaysia. This is both conventional and Sharia.
A total of 58 SRI funds offered in Malaysia. Is that good? Is that a lot?
Well, that's encouraging because we start this journey in 2014, right? And the fact that people are already taking up, and the funding is now done that way, and they're consciously looking for various ways that they can fund businesses through the sustainable products.
Right.
And they have many other guidelines that is already been issued and published, Bursa, Bank Negara. So they are all working together right now to align some of these frameworks together.
Right.
So that is a progressive thing.
Which brings me to a very important question, put together by the producer or the person who put together this content, which is Daniel Rahman. Some detractors say that there are elements of greenwashing in corporate Malaysia. Okay, it's like when cars call plastic seats vegan leather, and when Apple decided to stop giving phone chargers with their new phones on the basis of sustainability, where in fact it was just to cut costs.
That's true. Gerard, for me, simply greenwashing is saying you are green when you are not, right? And it is as simple as product misrepresentation that happens a lot, even without sustainability. So it is also, again, simply put, you say pisang goreng as healthy. Pisang is healthy, but the fact that it's been fried, it is not healthy, right? But they still claim as healthy. So it's like that, and it is because consumers are now demanding more sustainable products, and the marketeers overexcited, to make claims so that they can sell their products. So it's that human behavior. How we can mitigate this, Gerard, is that consumers have to be protected. Consumers have to be made aware. Right, just like any other products, they have to know what are the labeling of sustainability or green and so forth.
Right. Yeah? Now, small and medium industries, better known as SMEs to most of us, make up approximately 98% of all businesses in the country, and they contribute close to 40% of our GDP. While we don't often speak of them in the same light as corporate Malaysia, they're nevertheless vital cogs in this whole sustainable journey of ours here in Malaysia. Your thoughts on this, TENGKU?
Yeah, of course, Gerard. I mean, the stats that you've just mentioned just now just shows how much impact SMEs have to our economy, right? And the comfort is that many of them are already part of the corporate Malaysia supply chain, right? And I mentioned just now, corporate Malaysia has got that benefit of having the guidelines, frameworks, well thought out by the regulators and the stakeholders. So at some point, by virtue of them being in that supply chain, they will be they will be coming on board sustainability very, very soon, right? And the fact they have to. And also, they are small. They are small, they are entrepreneurial, they are innovative, so they can make better decisions, faster decisions than even corporate Malaysia. So I see only good things about that.
Right. I'd like to now move back to MUAZ. And I think when we talk about the youth, we always think of people like Greta Thunberg. We've seen figures like her come under fire or come under an unflattering spotlight, and this happened in recent times due to positions taken on holding corporations accountable for their unsustainable practices. Now, the question is, what are your views on the role of the youth in pushing for change in climate and social justice? Has this moral leverage diminished in recent times? Maybe, just after the great lockdown, have you seen this go down, or have you seen it move on in an upward trend, so to speak?
Yep. Look, the youth bring a perspective that is fresh. It's unburdened by traditional systems or any vested interests. and they've been very effective in highlighting the intergenerational implications of climate change and the importance of acting now rather than later, right? I mean, you talk about Greta Thunberg, but there are many different types of young activists out there who are increasingly leveraging on technology, social media, grassroots movement, think taking up different avenues as well as roles in their push for change. They're not just on the ground; they're engaging in dialogue, collaborating with other stakeholders, and promoting innovative solutions. And it's their energy, passion, and unwavering commitment that hopefully will continue to catalyze the positive change in our society. When it comes to, you mentioned the moral leverage. Their moral leverage is rooted in the undeniable fact that any inaction or action that happens today will impact them tomorrow.
But I mean, to bring this back to where we are, is there greater consciousness now amongst the young in Malaysia? And when I mean Malaysia, I'm not talking about the nice parts or urban Malaysia. I'm talking about Malaysia as a whole.
Yes, of course. With the impacts of climate change now being felt across society in Malaysia, we see more awareness from all aspects of youth, both in urban areas as well as the rural areas. So, post-pandemic, they've been a lot more vocal. Again, as you said, not just in urban areas, and it's a trend that is here to stay.
MUAZ, thank you very much. We'll have to let you go, and we thank you for your input on what you had to share with regards to what we're talking about today. We hope to have you in the studios at some point. Coming back to you, TENGKU, can you share with us SIDC's plan and to create more awareness in the SRI investment space? In this regard, why is the educational awareness and development aspects so important at this point here in Malaysia and also in the region, I think?
One of the challenges that you have, key challenges you have in the sustainability journey right now is people bucket. Yeah, people not having maybe they're resistant to change, right? Limited competency, limited skills, limited knowledge. So for them to come on board this journey, you have to be empowered, right? And education, lifelong learning, and also knowledge sharing is very important for that. As for SIDC, I think the way that we approach this, being again the capacity building arm of the SC, how we started this journey is alongside the SC. We start with thought leadership first. Yeah,
thought leadership
first. Yeah. So we, as they come up with their framework, and we bring in all the leaders together, converge them, and we put them together in what we call Sustainable and Responsible Investment Conference. Right. So the first year we did that, the way that we curated that, Gerard, is to get them to discuss that this conversation about sustainability has to be done at the top level, at the board level, right? That has to happen. And then the board level first, yeah. And then they cascade down to the management, right? Second year, we look down at the management level. Now, management has that discussion, conversations that sustainability has to be embedded into their strategy, right? And the third year we're looking at it, we bring back the whole organization. Right now you have got sustainability, strategy, and that the fact that strategy can be profitable as well, being sustainable. So the third year we look at the whole organization. Now the fourth year we're going to have one soon in June, and we are going to discuss more on how the various frameworks that we have before, how do we align that together? Right. Because that is getting more complex now. The whole organization is involved. People need to know how to do things. But the important
definitely be coming back to tell us more about that at some point. Yeah. Well, I guess the question now is, what's the long-term hope? Can our efforts really help us achieve COP27 targets and commitments? For the viewer, COP27's target commitments aims to accelerate global action and achieve significant reductions in greenhouse gases, isn't it?
Yep. I think, whether or not we're going to achieve there at the right year that we have targeted, that is another conversation altogether. But I think right now, SIDC being people-oriented kind of company, my hope is that with the three goals that we will have to see in the culture to embed culture of sustainability is three-pronged. Yeah? One is integration sustainability in education from the young age. right? We have to make sure that it is part and parcel of our life. I mean, I described you just now that it's already there, but we just need to make that more aware among the young generation. Second, lifelong learning and professional education. People like us, our generation, we are making decisions right now, but we want to make sure that our decisions are being participated by the young generation. They need to be there to assist us to make decisions for their future.
Right.
And thirdly is the knowledge sharing and collaboration. This is where we have got so many data going around, so many research people. People are doing a lot of things right now. If we can get that coordinated as a center of excellence, that would be wonderful for us to be able to learn from each other.
Right. And before I let you go, Tengku, if there was one thought you wish that our government really accelerate this year, whether in terms of policy, a new law, maybe financing, or probably just a small initiative, what would it be and why?
Well, for me personally, Gerard, I think it is more about assessing the education, right? So I mentioned just now that if we can start the formal education accessibility early, that's one. And then the other one may be something that alluding to what MUAZ mentioned just now, is that if we could start tracking the mental health of our young generation. Yeah? Because in the West, it's been shown that there's already a trend that the young generation is having the climate or eco anxiety, right? It may not be as much seen in Malaysia yet. People are very much robust.
May not be as much seen, or we don't have enough data on it?
Maybe not. Maybe we don't see that yet. Maybe it's something that is why we want to start tracking, because it's already happening. And I think young generation, they are talking globally, right? With so much access to each other. So maybe this is something that we can start tracking and monitor. And perhaps we can mitigate them even by getting them very much involved in our decision making for their own future, so that they can take control. But we must first empower them with education, right? So that I think that is I guess my ask for that. But I think all of us are working a lot on this.
Right, and also going back to the grassroots, we were talking about getting the grassroots going is always, is always very tricky. Like even now when you look at thoughts, the people are very divided with this whole climate change thing. While there's a lot of us who think that climate change is real, there's an equal amount, or maybe a little bit fewer than that, who think that really, the world goes through cycles and this is just one of them. And, how do we wrap our heads around this concept when we think of bringing information down to the people? Because there's so much of misinformation at this point.
Or perhaps misunderstanding, right?
Misunderstanding,
because there's so many jargons going around. And today, the way that we discuss accessibility among both of us today, we bring down the language to a very minimal, basic level, right? If you read articles on climate change, there's so much science data inside there that, if you feel that you come in at this point and you feel so left out because you don't know, right? Don't know the term. So I think it is good for us to bring back in terms of the basic or what accessibility is all about. That will be good for us to go to the general public as a whole, rather than using all the jargons. Let's leave it to the experts.
Let's leave the jargons, the nomenclature and whatever else to the experts. Tengku, it was a pleasure having you in the studio. We also like to thank MUAZ. We were speaking to Tengku ZARINA, Tengku CHIK, the CEO of SIDC, and MUAZ Muhammad HASNOL, Management Consultant from the Boston Consulting Group, or BCG. We're talking about accelerating sustainability responsiveness in corporate Malaysia. I'm Gerard Ratnam. Thanks for tuning in. Keep yourself updated with Bernama TV. We'll bring you more updates as we go along right here on The Nation. This has been The Nation on Bernama TV. Bye for now. Have a great day ahead, my friend.